Hello, and welcome to another edition of Soulmates Commander Abridged, bringing you the best bits of long-ass Commander games. Before we get into turn order and deck overviews, just be sure to give us a like and subscribe for more Magic the Gathering Commander content in the future. Going first is Adam playing his Tymna and Tana partner deck. This is a stacksless Blood Pod combo list filled with recursive creatures and value engines. I'm up next playing my Queen Marchesa list, an Aikido build heavily inspired by a similar list from the guys on the Legendary Creature podcast, but with a lot of my own alterations. The goal is to let my opponents get up to some bullshit for a while, keep the heat off myself, build up everyone's resources, and then use their own momentum against them. Third is James playing a Taigam Ojutai Master deck. James is trying to get Taigam out, swing with him, give him evasion with spells, and repeat. The deck is filled with low-cost cantrips and combat tricks to take advantage of Taigam's rebound-granting ability for commander damage kills. There's also a small suite of dragons, which will be uncounterable thanks to Taigam for a little bit of spice on top. Going last is Joey playing Gishath, Sun's Avatar, a deck that's all about dinosaur tribal. It wants to ramp up to Gishath as fast as possible, swing it at someone, slam free dinos on the board with the combat damage trigger, then throw in all the best tribal pieces for one hell of a beast to go up against. With all that, let's get into the gameplay. Adam starts off with a Bayou, tapping it for Birds of Paradise, then passes the turn. I play a Clifftop Retreat, which comes out tapped, and pass. James plays a tapped Hallowed Fountain, opting to not pay 2 life, and then passes. Joey plays a Croson Verge as his land for the turn, and then passes. Adam plays a Marsh Flats as his turn 2 land, immediately paying 1 life and cracking it to find a Plateau, then taps out to cast Tymna the Weaver from the command zone. He then passes. I play a Caves of Koilos and tap both my lands for a Rakdos Signet, passing right after. James plays an island and hits us with his iconic turn 2 Arcane Signet. We mock his clear deck stacking as he passes the turn. Joey plays a forest and then passes without a turn 2 play, also known colloquially as a CJ. For turn 3, Adam untaps and heads straight into combat, swinging Tymna at me. I have no blocks and take 2 commander damage, gaining Adam 2 life from the lifelink. In his second main, Adam pays 1 life into the Tymna trigger to draw a card. He then plays a forest, tapping to cast both a Goblin Bombardment and a Blood-Soaked Champion. With nothing else, he passes the turn. I start with a Concealed Courtyard as my third land, then cast a Curse of Opulence, attaching it to James. Then I cast Sign in Blood, drawing 2 and taking 2 damage. I pass the turn to James. James plays an island and runs out Taigam Ojutai Master from the command zone. Being tapped out, he passes. Joey plays a mountain, then casts a Cultivate, grabbing a forest for the battlefield and a plains for his hand. He passes the turn. Adam starts out with a command tower and again heads to combat. He swings Tymna at me and a Blood-Soaked Champion at Joey. There are no blocks, so Joey and I each take 2 damage, with me now at 4 Tymna damage. Tymna triggers at the beginning of the second main phase, and Adam pays 2 life to draw 2 cards. He casts a Pawn of Ulamog and sacrifices Blood-Soaked Champion to Goblin Bombardment, dealing the 1 damage to James's face. The Blood-Soaked Champion dying triggers the Pawn of Ulamog, so Adam gets a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn token. He uses his Birds of Paradise and a land to bring back Blood-Soaked Champion using its raid ability, then passes to me. I lead off with a Fetid Heath, then cast Milady Queen Marchesa, becoming the Monarch when she enters the field. I swing the Bing at James, and on this attack, the Curse of Opulence triggers, creating me a gold token. James doesn't block, and he takes 3 commander damage. I make a quick rules clarification.
I am the Monarch. I am the Monarch. I am the Monarch. Okay.
Then end my turn and draw a card from the Monarch. James heads into combat before any plays and swings Taigam at me, maintaining priority to cast a Zealous Strike, giving Taigam +2/+2 and first strike until the end of the turn, and exiling the spell as it resolves since it now has Rebound. I have no blocks and take 5 Taigam damage, making James the Monarch. In his second main phase, James casts See the Truth, looking at the top 3 cards of his library and putting 1 into his hand with the rest on the bottom. It exiles as it resolves with Rebound, and James plays a land for the turn, passing right after and drawing from the Monarch. Joey starts off by casting a Courser of Crewfix, revealing a Thrashing Brontodon on the top of his library. He plays a Canopy Vista and gains a life from the Courser's trigger. He passes the turn. Adam starts turn 5 with a Vault of Champions, then heads to combat. He swings Tymna at me again and Blood-Soaked Champion at James this time, triggering Curse of Opulence to give Adam and me a gold token each. Neither James nor myself have blockers, so we take 2 damage each, putting me to 6 Tymna damage, which could be relevant, you never know. In his post-combat main phase, Tymna triggers and Adam again pays 2 life to draw 2 cards. He plays a Tireless Provisioner, then sacrifices his Blood-Soaked Champion to Goblin Bombardment to deal 1 to Joey's face. The champion dying triggers the Pawn of Ulamog again, giving Adam another Eldrazi spawn token. Then he brings the Blood-Soaked Champion back from the graveyard with its raid ability. He passes the turn to me, drawing for the Monarch at his end step. I untap and have a Marchesa trigger on my upkeep, creating me a hasty Death Touch Assassin token since I am not the Monarch.
I will draw. Sure.
Joe, you gotta eat that fucking protein bar right now. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not.
I play a land for the turn, then enter combat, swinging Queen Marchesa at Adam and the Assassin token at James, triggering the Curse of Opulence to make me a gold. James can't block and takes 1 damage, while Adam blocks Marchesa with one of his Eldrazi spawn tokens. I head to the post-combat main and play a Sunforger, which I equip onto Queen Marchesa once it resolves. With nothing else for now, I pass the turn. James untaps and his rebound spells rebound on his upkeep, and he casts both See the Truth and Zealous Strike, drawing him 3 cards now, and giving Taigam +2/+2 and First Strike until the end of the turn. He goes through main phase 1 and enters combat, swinging Taigam at Adam. Adam blocks with a spawn, and before damage, sacrifices the spawn to Goblin Bombardment to deal 1 damage to James's face. In his second main, James plays a Gift of Estates, rebounding as it resolves, while he grabs 3 planes from his library and puts them into his hand. He plays a Glacial Floodplain as his land for the turn, and follows that up by casting a Swiftfoot Boots. He Tims up Taigam and passes the turn, discarding down to 7 cards in hand. Joey draws the Thrashing Brontodon, and then reveals a Farseek on the top of his library. He plays a Plains and gains a life from the Courser, then heads into combat. Courser swings at James, netting Joey and me a gold token each. James takes the 2 damage, and Joey enters his second main, tapping out to play a Star of Extinction, targeting Adam's Bayou and then potentially dealing 20 damage to every creature. With this on the stack, I activate Sunforger's ability to find Boros Charm from my deck, casting it for free, choosing to give my permanents indestructible. In response to this, Adam sacrifices Blood-Soaked Champion into Goblin Bombardment, dealing 1 damage to my queen, creating another Eldrazi spawn, sacrificing it right away to the bombardment to deal another 1 to the queen. He continues this by sacrificing the Provisioner to the bombardment, dealing the last point of damage to Marchesa, killing it before it gets indestructible, and also creating him another spawn, which he sacrifices to deal 1 damage to my remaining assassin, killing it as well. Then Boros Charm resolves, uselessly, and then Star of Extinction resolves, dealing 20 damage to all creatures and destroying Adam's Bayou. Pawn of Ulamog triggers as Adam's 3 remaining creatures die, giving him 3 Eldrazi spawn tokens. Joey passes the turn. Adam plays a Victimize to start his turn, sacrificing a spawn token to bring Tireless Provisioner and Pawn of Ulamog back from the graveyard onto the battlefield tapped, though he has them enter untapped because he's a stinky cheater man who smells, and we also didn't notice. He plays and cracks a Prismatic Vista, paying 1 life, to grab a Swamp from his library, which triggers Tireless Provisioner twice, making him 2 more treasure tokens. He then plays a Feyburrow Elder, sacrificing a spawn to help cast it, and passes the turn over to me, drawing for the Monarch at his end step. I play a Scavenger Grounds, then recast Queen Marchesa, becoming the Monarch once more. I end my turn and draw a card. James untaps and Gift of Estates rebounds at his upkeep, so James grabs a Plains from his deck and puts it into his hand, then drawing for the turn right after. He plays an island, and recasts Taigam from the command zone, equipping him with the booties after he resolves. With nothing else, he passes the turn over to Joey. Joey draws his Farseek, then cracks his Croson Verge, and for the sake of brevity casts Farseek at the same time, grabbing a Stomping Grounds, a Cinderglade, and a Temple Garden, all of which enter the battlefield tapped. After going to Ramp City, he passes the turn. Adam plays a land which triggers his Tireless Provisioner, creating another treasure token. He recasts Tymna the Weaver from his command zone and then moves to combat. He swings Feyburrow Elder at Joey, who has no blocks and takes 4 damage. At the beginning of his post-combat main phase, Tymna triggers, so Adam pays 1 life to draw a card. He taps his Feyburrow Elder for everything but blue, uses Blood-Soaked Champion's raid ability to put it back onto the battlefield from the graveyard, and follows that up by using the remaining mana on a Bloom Tender, then passes the turn to me. I start my turn, do not create an assassin this time since I remained the Monarch, so I play a mountain and follow that up with a Talisman of Conviction. After a little bit of dino deliberation,
Joey,
Yeah.
where's that dinosaur going, man?
Listen, full disclosure to the table. Whoever wants the dinosaur can have him and then be safe from him for a while. That's how I'm gonna put it.
Joey, I have spells that can make the dinosaur better.
So
I can make the dinosaur much, much worse.
I can make the dinosaur not exist.
I swing Marchesa at James, which triggers the Curse of Opulence for a gold token. James doesn't block, taking 3 commander damage. Then in my second main, I equip the Sunforger onto Marchesa, passing the turn while chilling. James plays a Plains as his land for the turn, then heads for combat. Taigam goes at Joey, who has no blocks and takes 3 commander damage. In James's post-combat main, he casts a Preordain, scrying 2, putting 1 on the bottom and drawing the other. As it resolves, it has rebound, so it goes to exile. He then casts a Time Warp, targeting himself to get an extra turn. In response, I cast a Reverberate, copying the spell and targeting myself with a new copy to get an extra turn as well. In response to that, Adam casts a Deflecting Swat to change the target of the original Time Warp to himself, but in response to that, I cast a Lapse of Certainty to counter the Deflecting Swat and put it back on the top of Adam's library.
I'm going to help James out here.
Oh,
I'm
come on.
gonna lapse of certainty that deflecting swat.
Oh,
Fuck is that shit?
Oh, that's the
Holy
white counter
shit.
spell.
After helping James out, he graciously passes the turn to me, the most righteous of homies, and at the end of his turn, I unattach the Sunforger from Marchesa, taking 1 damage from Caves of Koilos to add a white mana, and cast Anguished Unmaking for free, targeting Adam's Goblin Bombardment. In response, Adam sacrifices Bloodsoaked Champion and 2 Eldrazi spawns to the bombardment, dealing 3 damage to Queen Marchesa, killing her yet again. Anguished Unmaking then resolves, exiling the Goblin Bombardment, and I lose 3 life. During this exchange, James and Joey do some politicking.
I'm so sorry, Joey.
It's alright, dude. I'll do something eventually.
I could give you the extra turn when it rebounds.
Be pretty
I
Chad.
could do that.
That would
you
be-
want to do that?
If you want to.
I
then-
think I want to do that if you don't swing anything at me. Actually, I'll let you swing
Oh
Gishath
my
at me,
God.
and then I'll let you get the extra turn. How about that?
Oh my god.
That would be fucking cool.
I then start my extra turn with my copy of Time Warp having resolved first, and I play a Bojuka Bog targeting Adam's graveyard, exiling it. I cast a Sun Titan with no fucking targets in my graveyard because I'm dumb as shit, so I hold priority before he enters and basic land cycle an Ash Barrens, grabbing a Plains from my hand, and returning the Ash Barrens to the field once Sun Titan resolves. That's ramp. After that, I pass to James for his extra turn, drawing since I am still the Monarch. James starts his extra turn off with some rebounding spells, casting the Preordain first, scrying 2, putting both at the bottom, and drawing a card. He then casts the Time Warp next, with it targeting Joey as promised, in exchange for Joey only swinging Gishath at James on his first turn, then using the dinos he potentially gets off the top on the second turn to damage Adam and myself. James casts a Leonin Light Scribe in main phase 1, then enters combat. He swings Taigam at Adam, who declares no blocks. Before damage, James casts a Beaming Defense, giving Taigam +2/+2 and Hexproof, also triggering the Light Scribe, giving Taigam an extra +1/+1. As it resolves, the spell goes to exile due to rebound. James then casts a Show of Confidence, which gets copied for each spell that he had cast this turn, giving Taigam 4 +1/+1 counters and Vigilance, which doesn't really matter since he's already tapped and attacking, but hey. And as it resolves, again it goes to exile due to rebound. This spell actually should have triggered the Light Scribe 4 times for Magecraft, since this spell was copied 3 times, but during the game we missed this, so as we played it out, it only triggered 1 time, giving 1 other +1/+1 buff. So in total, Taigam was an 11/12 Hexproof Vigilant Boyo at the time, smacking Adam for 11 commander damage. In his post-combat main phase, James pays 1 mana and delves 7 cards to cast a Treasure Cruise, drawing 3 cards and gaining rebound with Taigam. He plays an island as his land for the turn, then passes it over to Joey for his extra turn before his real turn starts. Joey untaps and windmill slams Gishath, Sun's Avatar, heading to combat right away, swinging him at James for primo 7 commander damage as promised, and netting Joey and myself a gold token each, which we don't remember, but we do pick up on it later. James blocks the damage with his face, so Joey can get that sweet Gishath trigger. Joey reveals an Atali Primal Storm, Taurian Mauler, Raging Swordtooth, Galta Primal Hunter, 2 lands, and a Naya Charm. Atali, Taurian Mauler, Raging Swordtooth, and Galta all enter the battlefield. Upon entering, Raging Swordtooth triggers and deals 1 damage to each other creature, which kills Adam's Bloom Tender and triggers his Pawn of Ulamog, creating an Eldrazi spawn token. Joey ends his first turn and heads to his second one. He untaps and casts the Great Henge, cost reduced because his dinos are fat as fuck. He follows that up with the Thrashing Brontodon, which triggers the Great Henge as it enters the battlefield. The dino gets a +1/+1 counter, and Joey draws a card. He then enters combat, and I hit him with some facts and logic.
If that comes at me specifically, you're getting 0 dinosaurs.
Why?
He's gonna destroy it, dude.
Alright, dude, yeah, I know. I don't stand a fucking chance. Dinosaurs don't do shit against that.
He swings Gishath and Wayward Swordtooth at Adam, and Atali and Galta at me. On attack, Atali triggers, during which I reveal a Grave Betrayal, James reveals a Mystic Sanctuary, Adam reveals Deflecting Swat from earlier, and Joey reveals a Quartzwood Crasher. Joey casts the Grave Betrayal from my deck and his own Quartzwood Crasher, and the Mystic Sanctuary and the Deflecting Swat stay exiled. Adam declares an Eldrazi spawn as a blocker for Gishath, and I cast a Delirium targeting Galta. This taps down Galta, who's already tapped, but it deals 12 damage to Joey's face and makes it so Galta deals no damage this turn.
That is some fucking delirium, alright.
I then declare no blocks and take 6 from Atali, while Adam takes 11 from Gishath and the Swordtooth combined. It's at this point that Joey remembers the Taurian Mauler trigger, putting a +1/+1 counter on it from when I cast the Delirium. After damage, there's a couple of triggers, so Joey first resolves the Gishath trigger, revealing 5 lands, a Llanowar Elves, and Pyrohemia, which all go to the bottom because they are not dinosaurs. Quartzwood Crasher then triggers, and Joey makes an 11/11 dinosaur beast token with Trample. In his post-combat main phase, he casts a Descendant's Path, gaining 2 life from the Great Henge when tapping it for mana. He passes the turn to Adam, who had to suffer through 3 extra turns and was still a pretty good sport about it. Adam starts off his turn by remembering that his Eldrazi spawn died, then enters combat and swings Pawn of Ulamog at James. On attack, Curse of Opulence triggers, so he and I make a gold token. James doesn't block and takes 2 damage. Tymna triggers in the second main, and Adam pays 1 life to draw a card. He plays a Polluted Delta as his land for the turn, triggering the Tireless Provisioner, making another treasure token. Then he pays his life, cracks the Delta for another land, getting another treasure off of the Provisioner. He casts a Mayhem Devil, and follows that up with a Zulaport Cutthroat, following that up with a Viscera Seer. Eager to get this shit over with, he casts a Demonic Tutor, using mana from the Feyburrow Elder. He finds a card, and uses the rest of his non-gold, non-token mana and 2 life to play a Birthing Pod. He then uses the Birthing Pod to sacrifice Tymna to find a creature from his library, paying 2 life to activate it. This triggers Mayhem Devil and Zulaport Cutthroat, so Adam gains a life, everyone else loses a life, and James takes the damage from the Mayhem Devil trigger. It also triggers the Pawn of Ulamog, but Adam misses it for now, realizing later he finds a Felidar Guardian which enters the battlefield and targets the Birthing Pod with its ability to flicker. In response to the Guardian's enter the battlefield trigger, James casts a Valorous Stance, attempting to destroy it before the trigger can resolve. In response to this, Adam sacrifices the Guardian into Viscera Seer, scrying 1 off the top of his library. On the sacrifice, Mayhem Devil and Zulaport Cutthroat trigger again, dealing 1 damage to all of us while Adam gains 1 life, and James again taking an extra damage from the Mayhem Devil. It also triggers the Pawn of Ulamog, giving Adam another Eldrazi spawn, at which point he creates the other one from earlier. Birthing Pod then flickers, and when it comes back he activates it again, paying 2 life and using a treasure token to do so, triggering the Mayhem Devil to deal 1 damage to James's face. He sacrifices the Tireless Provisioner this time, triggering Mayhem Devil, Zulaport Cutthroat, and the Pawn of Ulamog, gaining him 1 life, dealing 2 to James, 1 damage to the rest of the table. In response to the activation of the Birthing Pod, now Joey activates his Brontodon to destroy it before it can be used again.
Joey had interaction on the board.
I was just scanning my board and I was like, wait.
Wait a fucking second.
The pickles that were under his tongue the whole time.
The Birthing Pod ability then resolves. Adam grabs a Luminous Broodmoth from his library. He sacrifices Pawn of Ulamog to Viscera Seer and Mayhem Devil, Zulaport Cutthroat, Luminous Broodmoth, and Pawn of Ulamog all trigger. We all take 1 damage, while Adam gains 1. He deals 1 damage to James from the Mayhem Devil. He gets an Eldrazi spawn, and Pawn of Ulamog comes back with a flying counter. He then sacrifices the Zulaport Cutthroat to Viscera Seer, which triggers everything I said before. Again, we all take 1 damage, Adam gains another life, James takes an extra damage from the Mayhem Devil. Adam gets an Eldrazi spawn token. Zulaport Cutthroat comes back with a flying counter. He does the same thing again with Feyburrow Elder, again triggering triggering everything, dealing 1 damage to everyone, gaining Adam 1 life, dealing an extra 1 to James, creating Eldrazi spawn, and Fabro Elder coming back with a flying counter. He does the same thing again with Mayhem Devil and Viscera Seer itself, triggering everything again, but these times he deals Joey the extra damage. And then he keeps doing it, and then he kills everyone. So he wins. Honestly, man, these are the games that remind me that it's important to just have fun when you play Magic. There were a lot of elements here that could have gotten very toxic very quickly, but if you're playing to keep the atmosphere fun, even tutors, combos, and extra turns can be engaging, and there's no reason to get mad at your friends, yourself, or the fucking cardboard on the table if you realize that you could have stopped someone from winning. Who cares? Just enjoy hanging out with your homies and let their fun be your fun too. Thanks for watching.